Right. I haven't done a live for, I think, a good few years now, but I thought I'll go live and I have with me amazing Rajiv. He's been an investor for quite some time. He has a few HMOs of his own and he's a pharmacist. And what we've changed in the past sort of a few months is we've converted this into a franchise. In fact, the strange thing that's happened, Rajiv, is I actually started this as a franchise in 2017. And I made the mistake, the
Wow.
learning curve of changing into not a franchise, but something else. Okay, so I used to just have inner circle members. Realized at some point, why the hell did I change it in the first place? And then I changed it back into a franchise, which is a lot better way to manage a property business and to be able to scale it. I've seen a few people scaling it with a franchise model. But yeah, and I just thought I'll share that with you. I don't know if you knew that. Tell me a bit more about yourself. What's happening on your end?
Thank you, Jack. Hope you're keeping well. So yeah, things are going great on my end. As Jack mentioned, I'm a property investor. I have a portfolio of HMOs, and I'm a pharmacist. That's my career. So I've built everything whilst working full time as a pharmacist. So I've managed to build teams, raise finance from investors, and just build the portfolio hands-free, basically. So yeah, property has been with me since 2016. I think that's when I first got in. As usual, you go down the rent to rent route, start with the HMOs, then you go into rent to rent service accommodation. We had a management company just before COVID hit. Then I done some development work with land development. We bought some land, got planning permission, and we built a 5-bedroom house and flipped it. So yeah, done quite a lot of work within property. But I really enjoy one part I'm really enjoying is I've done a lot of this as raising investor finance. So as people know, when you're a pharmacist, a doctor, yes, you get paid, but to make those big chunks, it takes a long time to save up. So a key for me to build my portfolio to the developments was to raise investor finance. So if you look at my socials, a lot of my content out there is how I raise finance and how I help people do the same. And obviously, we talk about how investors can also get paid, get more bang for their buck, and yeah, give them good interest and ROI on their money. And I recently started working with Jack as well because he's going to share something really interesting soon, which really got me thinking this is a great way to raise finance if you don't want to use private investors. Because let's face it, right? You want to make chunks and chunks of money, and that takes a long time. Yeah, 4, 5, 10, 20 years, and you've finally saved 100,000. Something Jack's going to talk about now is how you can potentially raise chunks of cash within 12 to 18 months, maybe 24 months, and how you can use that to build your property portfolio. And that's what really got me intrigued. So Jack, when you're ready, let's talk about your specialty, something that you've done and you've got some great results in. Jack, when you're ready, do you want to talk
Yes,
about
yes,
the
yes. Let
new
me
model?
share this, right? Let me share this so people can see through. Okay. So first of all, I came as an immigrant with £300 in my pocket. I've had absolutely no help whatsoever in my life to do anything. Okay. So I got to a point where one of our last deals made £600,000 in profits by only investing 20 grand.
Wow.
Okay. That's an option agreement. And then what we did was we took an option agreement on a really large detached house. We applied for planning permission. We only paid £1 for the option. Delayed completion 24 months later. Eventual agreed price 1.1 million. We applied for planning. We got planning permission for 8 units. That's 6 flats and 2 semis. We did not exercise the option. That means we didn't buy the property. We sold the option agreement for 1.7 million, making a 600 grand profit. Our investment was only 20 grand between legals, architects, and planners.
Wow.
Okay.
See,
Now,
guys, it's different.
yeah. So see, we did not touch the building. We did not develop. We did not speak with the builder. All we did was we raised the value of the asset with paper exchange. I call it paper exchange because even though it may be a lot more technical, you have to speak with the architects, the planners, lots of consultants. it still is paper exchange. You don't physically have to do any work. Okay. And at the same time, another deal that we did at the back of that, well, almost simultaneously, was I took a 20-bed operational hotel. We got 130 grand discount right day one. We ended up doing a major refurb on that building. And then we ended up adding 220,000 rand equity. Plus, the most interesting bit is we rented that hotel on a 5 years lease for 47,000 pound per annum net rental income.
Wow,
Okay, so that's like just shy of 1,000 pound a week coming to us in net rental income. Okay, the only
so
reason I
Jack,
was able to do that is because I understand where the bill, when someone is desperate. So when you speak with someone, you should be able to ascertain that are they actually desperate to sell or not, and what do they actually want for it. Okay, and at the same time understanding how you can increase value of an asset by adding, obviously, in our game, right, in the project that I did, we refurbed 8 rooms, major refurb, and then we did quite a bit of other electric work and so on and so forth. We ended up spending about 65 grand on it. But what we ended up doing was we created this, like I said, shy of 1,000 pound a week in. Okay, how long did it take me to do that project? 6 months. Okay, how long did it take me to do the first project that I shared with you? A year. Okay, so it's not very difficult. All it is it needs a lot of focus and technical learning. Okay, and the most important thing, which a lot of people don't really realize, is patience. It may sound cliche, but at the same time, I feel that what people don't realize is that the only time you lose is when you give up early, because there's only 2 ways, right? You either give up too early or you become successful, right? There's no 2 ways about it. And that's where I think most people go wrong. They're not resilient enough. They don't have enough patience. They don't stay around and actually do the work. A lot of people do. I come across, here's the funny bit, a lot of people I come across, they do the talk, they don't actually do the work.
yeah,
They don't do the work. They don't put the work in. And I always say, look, it's one thing you going out and working 20 hours a day, and it's another thing sitting at home, sharpening your saw. That means really learning the game and making that what you could do in 20 hours, you go and do it in 2 hours. Okay, talking about smart work. But at the same time, most people don't do that. They don't actually sit around and say, I'm going to really learn this game, like really learn the game. You know, I may go on and on about this, right? But I don't waste a minute while I'm driving. I'm listening to audiobooks. I take weeks on end off so I could get more trainings. Okay. But when I finish those trainings and I come back, and I always come back stronger, and I end up doing deals, which most people, when they hear about it, well, at least most people, they get surprised. And being an immigrant and getting to a point where I don't have to worry ever about working, because physically I have enough rental income to enjoy the rest of my life, never have to worry, is a space where it's all freedom, right?
of course.
I can get up and say I want to take the whole day off, or I want to get up. I get up and say I'm only going to work a couple of hours, and I'll only work with people who I want to work with, rather than people that I have to work with. On a bigger level, they say the FU money, right? Getting to a point where you can say anyone F off. It's that simple, right? You want to get to that point, but the only way you're going to get to that point is not by hard work. A lot of people think hard work is a major factor. There's lots of stats. Go and read those. Hard work is only 25% of the factor in success. It's only 25%. So you can go and work 20 hours a day for the rest of your life. That's only 25% of the equation.
Of course. Oh, that's great. So Jack, let me put this in layman's terms, right? Because you got an audience, I've got audience. I know you're very in depth with plan gain. So if I summarize it, you'll go out, you look for a property that has potential planning to add value to it, right? So potentially another house on the side plot or flats like you've done before. Then you approach the landlord and potentially do a deal with them, saying, "Look, I'm interested in your property. This is this." You don't exactly tell them what you plan to do, right? But you're interested in the property, and this is I'm a developer, and this I want to buy the property off you. Now, you mentioned something in there, an option agreement. Now, can you tell the audience and the listeners what is this option agreement and how is it exercised? In very simple terms, because people when they think about option agreements, they get quite confused.
They
So,
do.
if you give an example of what you do and how you use the option agreement, I think that would really simplify things.
It actually is what the name says. The option to buy or not. Okay. So what that means is that when you approach a landlord, you say, look, I have done some research on your property. I see some potential. Okay. And if you want to discuss some numbers with us, we can do that. But at the same time, what we can do is we can help reach full potential of your property. Going back to the option agreement, what it means is that you take the option of controlling that property. It's a registered agreement. So it gets registered on the title of the property, which means once you sign that agreement, you now control the property, and the landlord cannot just go out and sell that property. You then controlling means that now you're allowed to go and apply for planning permission on that property. Once you apply for planning permission, then now you have the option to exercise that agreement, or you have the option to leave the agreement. So let's say you go, and let's say in the worst case scenario you can't get the permission, you also have the option to just leave it. The only money you will lose is the money that you'll use for legals and planning, okay, which is not necessarily hundreds of thousands. It's probably about 5 or 10,000 pounds, okay. But then you also have the option to exercise that agreement, which means imagine if you agreed the price at hypothetically 1 million. The reason I'm saying 1 million is because most of the properties in and around Greater London, detached or semi-detached houses, are worth about £1 million these days, right?
Yeah.
So you go and sign something worth that's 1 million. You go and apply for planning permission, and now you've pushed the value of that piece of land or the property by normally about 500 grand at least. And let's say you apply for 6 or 8 or 10 flats or 9 flats. Anything more than 9, it goes into social housing stuff, it becomes more difficult. But let's say you apply for 6, 8, 9 flats. You've now pushed the value of that piece of property from 1 to 1.5 million.
Yeah.
Now from that 1.5, so let's say you've agreed the price at 1 million, or you may not get it at 1 million. You'd still need the advantage for someone to say yes to you in the first place of the option. You might turn up and say, well, if I push the value of whatever it is, I will share the 10% with you or 20% with you. So now the landlord, you get the advantage over someone else who's prepared to pay them 1 million, which is what it's worth. And you say, well, I can pay you maybe 1.1. They wait for you. They'll give you the option, right?
Yeah, of course.
So you can pay them 1.1 while you can walk away with 400 grand in profits. I'm just giving you numbers on a smaller deal. I'm not even giving you numbers on a bigger deal, right? A bigger numbers are, let me share with you a deal that came to me yesterday. So this is a deal in the middle of central London. There's already a commercial downstairs. It needs a refurb. There is 18 flats above. 9 of them have been refurbed to a lower spec. They still need to be up-spec'd. And 9 flats need major refurb. And it also comes with planning for 6 flats, 6 penthouses. The deal is coming to us as vendor with vendor finance, which means that we can borrow 65% of the money as debt. In this case, the property is worth just shy of 20 million. Okay. So we can borrow 13 million as debt, We pay the 13 million to the landlord. The 7 million is funded by the landlord himself. We need 6 million for the refurb and the build, and the GDV sits at 35 million. So we can go into a deal like this with maybe only a couple of £100,000 between legals and a little bit of cash flow. The rest can be all debt, and the initial deposit is vendor funded, and we can walk away from the deal with anywhere between 5 million is very, very conservative figure, all the way up to 9 million.
Wow,
Now,
that
in this
sounds
case, you might say, well, there's no planning gain, but there's the commercial aspect, which means the numbers that I've just given you, they're very conservative. The commercial, we've already, the person who's dealing with this deal has already got a tenant lined up for £750,000 per annum rental income. Okay. And we are actually yesterday, we are actually going to go to the site tomorrow. But at the same time, the only reason I'm going into a deal like this to negotiate is because it's vendor funded. It's what you call landlord assisted sale.
wow.
Okay.
Sounds great.
So there are times when you play with the planning gain, while other times, if you look at the deal, it's a refurb of 9 flats, it's a refurb of the commercial, and it's a small refurb on the 9 other flats. And then if we want to build the 6 penthouses above, we can. And if we don't want to, we can always sell it further. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. So $1 million question for a lot of people will be this. Okay, so how do you find these properties that we want to do a planning gain on? I think also you can talk about the franchise here as well, Jack. And if you become a sole owner of a certain franchise, how you can help find those leads.
Yeah.
Because finding these leads, these are off-market leads, by the way, guys. It's not on Rightmove, Zoopla. These are off-market, direct to vendor, which makes them great. You don't want to touch anything on the market. These are just direct to vendor. But sometimes people feel that, how I'm going to sit there for hours, examining the area, finding those deals, those plots. So maybe you can talk about how the pen franchise that you run finds these type of leads for potential investors and potential people who want to get into your franchise. If you go ahead, Jack.
Yeah. So, okay. It's called self-promotion, but hey, I'll do it. Okay. But here's the interesting bit. Okay. Like I shared with you initially, that I actually started this as a franchise. And even at that point, I could bring leads for other people, I eventually got to a point where I realized a lot of people struggle finding these leads, direct to vendor leads. And we got to a point where I was like, okay, I can do this in-house, and I can actually physically have a team that in-house that work alongside me. We generate these leads for ourselves. And if we can do it for ourselves, we can do it for other people as well. And that's where I was like, okay, I'm going to convert this into a franchise, and we're going to generate these leads in-house for our franchisees. And that's exactly what we started. We've managed to get to now 18 franchisees across the country. We've covered most of London. That's the best part. Okay. I think there's only maybe one postcode that I can think on top of my head that's left. The rest are all gone. So the way it works is that we generate the property leads for you. That's in terms of planning gain as well as asset management. Now, what do I mean by asset management? We also generate for you for blocks, direct to vendor. We also generate for you leads for hotels that you can take over and take under your management. We are negotiating as we speak one development deal in Shepherd's Bush, one development deal in central London, one hotel deal in one of the islands. I can't say the name as yet. It's a 100-room hotel. We are also negotiating 37 flats under management. And I'm going through acquiring 14 freehold holiday let flats as we speak. Literally, we should be getting the key any day. Okay. These are the deals that we are working on. All of this stuff has been generated in-house through our network and through our technical knowledge of using the systems that we use in house to be able to generate all of this. Uh, and 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 I think, like I said, one of the things I realize is, which is where I'd like to create. I would like to, either I can or I cannot, I don't know, but I'd like to create more awareness about actions and words. Make sure your words match your actions, and that's very tough. Even in my 20s, I couldn't. I'd say something and I would struggle. Nowadays, when I say something, I make sure that it matches my actions. Um, and unless whoever is watching this, unless you don't get to that point, it's always going to be a bit of challenge. It's never going to be like, okay, I can make things happen. You make things happen when you say something and you say, I'm going to make it happen, irrespective of the kind of pain I'm going to get. Because remember, when you compare, hypothetically, you should never compare, but even if you do compare to be inspired and to be able to learn, you compare yourself to the likes of the bigger developers. The only time you can get to that point is when you create that pain tolerance. And in business, if you do not increase your pain tolerance, you'll never scale. You'll just never scale. With every step of scaling of any business comes pain. And unless you don't increase that pain tolerance, you just won't get there.
Jack, you mentioned this asset management, right? Managing hotels, managing blocks. And, you're talking in advance that it's a great cash flow strategy.
It is.
So if someone's working full time and they want to replace,
oh yeah, that's a good one. Yes, yes.
With the cash flow of hotel and block management, give us an example on what's required, what's the minimal type of blocks that you need to take under management. Are you using service accommodation, booking.com,
Yes.
Airbnb? Are you also, are you hiring someone to do the work? Are you personally doing Airbnb yourself? Because that's another job created in itself, right? So there's someone who might have a full-time job, and because I've done Airbnb management before, it's a long thing,
It's a long
sitting there comparing different hotels, getting the best prices. It's another job. So talk to the audience, the viewers, is how you can basically leverage a manager and how you can do things hands off.
Yeah, so that's very important. Okay, in fact, let me start with the very basics. Right? What do I mean by the basics is, if let's say you are in a full-time job, irrespective of what you do, let's say you're in a full-time job. How do you go from replacing a full-time job income, let's say in this case, 10 grand a month, like let's say 10 grand a month. I know a lot of people watching this might be thinking, well, I'm not on 10 grand a month, I'm on 2 grand a month. Fine, it doesn't really matter. You could be in 2 grand a month, or you could be on 20 grand a month, okay? Or 10 grand a month. But you can replace a full-time salary income by just acquiring one block or one single hotel. That's all. And as long as you stick to a certain criteria, you can afford a manager that will look after 97% of the operations, and then you can take your laptop and be anywhere in the world and still maybe only work a couple of hours a day. Not even that. I probably work an hour a week for some of my assets. You could be working an hour a week or 2 hours a week or whatever, and you could be still making as much money as you made from your full-time job. Like I said, let's say 10 grand in this case, just by acquiring one block of flats. Let's say you acquire a block of 9 flats, or let's say 10 flats. Let's say 10 flats. You make 1,000 pound a month from each unit. That's 10,000 pound a month. I'm talking about net profits in your pocket. You hire a manager, you pay him 2,000 a month. He looks after all the operations and the firefighting. You look after the money, you look after the reviews, and you make sure that the occupancy rates are there. And you could be making 10 grand by working only maybe 2 hours a week. You could acquire a 30-bed hotel. You could be making 20 grand a month, and you still have a manager on site who's doing all the firefighting and operations. And you're sitting with the laptop in Bali and enjoying your life and still making 20 grand a month. Okay? Yes, I'm talking about
Interesting.
booking.com, Airbnb, and all of these online portals, Expedia and TripAdvisor, and all of these portals. But you're not supposed to be in the cage. I remember I joined my here is a story for you, okay? I joined my family business when I was 14, Rajiv. Okay.
Yeah.
And I used to see my dad going to office every single day. And till I was like 18, 19, and I was getting frustrated. I was like, you know what? We literally are slaves, right? We have to go to office almost every day. We always have to be filling orders, all sorts of stuff. Till I realized in my mid 20s that irrespective, unless you create a system in your business that allows you time freedom, you literally are in a cage, right? It's almost like you come from a corporate background. You were making, let's say, 10, 15, 20 grand a month. You come into all of this service accommodation stuff. You start acquiring single units, and you just create another job for yourself. Okay, why would you do that? Why would you come from another job and create another job for yourself? Okay, and don't get me wrong, I mean, I've been through those stages where I was sitting in my office straight 3-4 days and I won't even go home. Okay, but at the same time I got to a point where I was like, okay, this is not how a business is supposed to be. Business means freedom. Why would you start a business in the first place? Freedom. Main reason for most people, at least. Okay, and the secondary reason is always, oh, I want to make more money. Okay, the wrong way of starting a business in the first place. If you want to make more money, you should stay in your corporate job. Okay, because when you come to business, you're likely going to make less money initially. Okay, so don't create a cage for yourself. Have a criteria in place that will allow you freedom. And with well, again, self-promotion within our franchise, we will generate the leads for you that will allow you that time freedom. Okay, we will even bring the money for the right deals.
You talked about the.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jack. You mentioned the criteria. Just to go through it again. Obviously, when we were doing the management for SA, we had 1, 2, 3 separate units, and as I said, it was another job in itself. You mentioned roughly having about 9 or 10. Can you explain why 9 or 10 gives you that freedom?
I'll explain that. Imagine if you have a block of 9 units.
People might get overwhelmed.
Yeah, no, I know. I can see that. I'll go slow. Here is something very interesting, okay? Let me tell you the background and I'll tell you the criteria. The background is I acquired 4 hotels under my management in under 12 months. And I became overwhelmed because I was managing them myself because I wanted to make more money. Okay? And I was making a lot of money till I realized that I'm burning myself again. Okay? So I decided, okay, let me just sit down and work out if I was to take a hotel and if I put a full-time manager on it, and he's the one who's doing all the firefighting, all the operations, he's doing everything, and I'm just looking after the money, how many rooms does it need to be? And from my observation of running these hotels for quite some time now, is if you acquire a hotel that's 30 or more rooms, and when I say acquire, I'm not saying buying the hotel. I'm saying either renting out or leasing the hotel. You don't necessarily need loads of money for it. You only need a little bit of money for it. Okay. So you acquire a 30-room hotel. You can then afford a manager. A manager you'd normally pay anywhere between 2,000 to 3,000 a month. Okay. You can get a really decent manager for 2,000 a month. Okay. That person lives on site. That means that's his home. Okay. And then he is dealing with everything at the hotel for you. All you got to do is look after him and look after the money. Okay. And then you can, like I said, take your laptop and be anywhere in the world and enjoy the time freedom. And you'll still be highly profitable because a 30-bedroom hotel would easily make anywhere between 100 grand all the way up to 500,000 depending on the location. Okay. So it's all about understanding that. And then within the block management, if let's say you acquire 9 or more units, if let's say you acquire a block of 9 units, not 8, but 9. If let's say in the worst case scenario, you make 500 net profit each unit, you'd still make 4,500 a month. And you can still pay a manager 2,000 and still be profitable at 2,500 a month. I'm being very conservative, the figures here. Okay. You can make 2,000 a unit. right? If you do it the right way. Okay, so even if you make 500, you still be profitable and still enjoy the freedom. Okay,
No,
but
that's
but a
brilliant.
lot of
That's
people
brilliant.
don't slow down and create the criteria that will allow them the time freedom. They just don't. And that's where our franchise comes in, right? You can be a part of our franchise. We will generate the leads for you. We'll bring you money for the right deals, and then we can actually close these deals together. That means I'm actually holding your hand, and then we are closing these deals together within our company. So yeah.
That's brilliant. So just we're coming up to 30-minute mark. So a few more minutes. Just quickly, so what's your goals now, would you say, for the rest of the year, 2025?
That
What do you
is
want
a
to
good
achieve?
question, Rajiv. I'm going to ask you the same question after when I answer. Okay. So I have a target of covering the whole of UK and then move on to Ireland and then Europe. We want to expand and cover pretty much UK, Ireland, and the whole of Europe with our franchise. And I think we can do it in the next 10 years. Okay. I'm giving myself the time because I still have a young family and I don't want to necessarily push myself and struggle with the family as in personal side of things. So, but 10 years is a long enough period to say this is something that I can do. Like I said initially, I want to make sure that my words match my actions. That's my goal. How about yourself?
That's a good goal to have. No, that's thinking big. Great book is called
Yeah,
Magic of Thinking Big. You know, you thought 10 years advance, where you want to be. So it's
yeah.
good to always have that kind of perspective. So 2025. As you guys know by now, I've actually got a postcode for the pen franchise. It's in the IG area. So I get leads in the IG area, hotels, blocks, and obviously the plan gains. Next few months, I'm actually launching IG Property Club, which is going to be a network event for local property investors, landlords, power teams, builders, architects. We're just doing the marketing for at the moment, where you come in, you get free education, you get exposure, and really just to become the authority in the area. So that's one of the things that I'm working towards. Also, I'm really focusing on the plan gain side of things because I'm really about the chunks of cash. Like, as you know, I always talk about raising investor finance. There's a lot of things that go within raising investor finance, from negotiation, leadership, mindset, which is 99% of it, and 1% is
Yeah.
strategy, in my opinion. So, I teach people that 1% strategy online and talk about the mindset required for it. So, yeah, I'm out on the socials teaching people how to raise that finance. And myself, I want to do something as Jack's done, as he had done a great plan gain last year, the day before, £600,000 cash chunk, right? So I want to do that by the end of the year and really grow my HMO portfolio. As you know, I've got a lot of love from HMOs. I have been since I got into rent to rents. I've got a few of them at the moment, all managed, all passive, and they bring in good income. It pays for my children, it pays for my lifestyle. I've retired my parents. There's so many things that go with it, with what HMOs have done for me. So my goal is create that chunks of cash with the plan gain to buy more properties to do more HMOs. And secondly, really provide value to my audience to teach them about how to raise investor finance. And this is a journey, it's an everyday thing. Every day I keep showing up online. You have to be present everywhere: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, you call it.
Well
Like
done.
today we're doing this stream.
Yeah.
It's just being out there and just showing the world what you're doing. And once you become the authority, the know, like, and trust factor, people come towards you. I'm always still looking for investors, right? So I'm always looking to raise cash for myself to build my project. When people see me in this space talking about property, it builds the authority, and people come up to me and say, maybe, Rajiv, I like what you're talking about, can I invest with you? So there's many goals out there that social media does for us. So Jack, that's my kind of goal for 2025: build a portfolio, get a plan going under my belt, and build the IG Property Club.
That sounds amazing. Uh, here is here is a question for you. What would you like to do after when you have achieved all your goals?
It's a good question, right? So I've always worked, I've always hustled, I've always kept myself busy. either that's working or doing property stuff. So when I think about me and having the freedom, right? People having cocktails on the beach. I don't really see myself doing that, right? Cocktails on the beach and stuff. What I do see is obviously traveling, of course, with my family. I travel 2-3 times a year still anyway, but just traveling more often, seeing the world, which is one of my things that I really want to do. It's also, being more present, because obviously, when you're working, you're hustling, you're doing, it's actually getting that more presence with your family, because you're always working, trying to build your goals. So more time with your family and your friends. I feel that that's always a must. I do as much as I can, but there's always a must to spend more time with your family, which is really important to me. And really always be working on something. You need to, as humans, if you're not, as I said, if you're not learning all the time, you're not applying, doing things, you're wasting away. So, hopefully it's going to be property, but if other projects come up in the future, I want to be involved, and I want to keep working until I can. So, people have different types of freedom. My freedom is still be active, provide value, do things, and more time with family and friends, and maybe have a cocktail or two on the beach. But yeah, it's about making sure my kids have the best life, make sure they have their studies or become entrepreneurs, whatever they want to do, but support them along their journey as well, so they don't make the mistakes I made, and just take it from there. So yeah, it's about, I'm a simple guy really. Obviously I like the cars and houses, all that kind of stuff, but that is just material stuff.
That's material.
The main thing is, how you spend your time with me will be with my family, my friends, stuff like that.
That's great. That's great. That's a really good answer. A lot of people I come across, I'll retire and I'll sit on a beach. What they don't realize is they never be able to do that, because that's not how financial freedom works. Financial freedom means you get so used to and start enjoying what you do that you never want to go to a beach. You just want to do what you do and what you're good at. And I enjoy what I do, and I've been lucky to become fairly good at what I do as well. So,
thank you, Jack.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you, Rajiv. This has been an amazing session. Lovely. For those who are watching this and want to learn more, right? I'm going to throw you a bomb. Okay. We have done internal training sessions since 2020. And we have 179 of those internal sessions pre-recorded on our portal, which you don't have access to. Okay. And they cover pretty much a lot about in fact, about 90% of what there is to learn about property business. And we're going to be releasing those 179 videos very, very soon to the public for absolutely free. And this is trainings worth £10,000. We're just going to release them and give them to the public for absolutely free. If you are not subscribed to our email sequence, send us a WhatsApp message on 07886962647. That's 07886962647. I will send you a link to subscribe to our email. And then what it will do is it will send you a video every single day for the rest of the year almost. Well, it's going to take 179 days. We are creating that sequence as we speak. So you'll get that in your inbox that you'll be able to watch, and you don't have to go and pay tens of thousands in property trainings with us. You can get them for absolutely free. And then if you'd like to know more about our franchise, just send the word franchise on the WhatsApp number that I gave you, and we will be able to share with you the prospectus, and then you can see if it is the right thing for you. Rajiv, do you have a shout out you want to do?
No, guys, I think that's an amazing offer, by the way. Listen, I've gone through the trainings myself. They're intense, they're great, they're really sharpen your saw. If you want to learn more about property, that is, of course. You got to take 15-20 minutes every day, little nuggets, and really understand what they're saying, and you got to apply it. Remember, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. You can read all the books, all the podcasts, all the videos, but if you don't take action on it, there's no point of doing anything.
There's no point doing it. Yes.
Yeah, there's no point. So don't even bother subscribing.
Yeah, exactly. I wrote the other day, I said,
That's
if you're not an action taker, then you're in the wrong place.
Yeah, exactly. So I just want to thank you to my
Thank
audience
you.
as well. Thank you, Dr. Jack. Me. So, guys, if you want to get in touch with Jack or myself, we're going to put all our social handles below. You follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and just follow our journey. We'll be doing this more often, guys. If you really enjoyed this content, going forward, we'll dig deep into each subject. This was just really introduction of what we are, what we do, and then when we meet up, we actually do live deals. We're going to be going on road, and we're going to be recording and doing some lives together as well. I think this Thursday, between 12 to 5, we're actually in the IG postcode. So if you guys want to pop down, I'm sure
Yeah,
Jack won't
of
mind.
course not. Yeah.
You can come down, and we'll do some lives while we're there together to see what we're doing on the road. So, guys, have a great evening, Jack.
Take care, Rajiv. Thank you, guys. Take care. Take
Good
care.
night,
Bye.
guys.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye. Bye.
Bye bye.